Alright, in this video we're going to be looking at exception handling in C++. We're going to set up a try-catch block, look at a few different ways of throwing and catching errors. And to do this, I'm going to open a file stream. I'm going to have the user enter a file name, and then we're going to try to open that file. And then we're going to handle a few different errors that could occur when we try to open that file. So to get started, I'm going to create an input file stream. I'll just call that file. And then to get the user's input, I'll create a string called file name. And then we can prompt the user to enter that file name. And then I'll use getLine to get the response from the user. All right, now that we have the input, we're going to try to open that file. So I'm going to write try, open and close parentheses, and then or open and close curly braces, and then we will write a catch block to handle our errors. And I'm not going to write anything in here just yet, but we'll come back to that in a minute. All right, so to open the file, I'm going to call file.open, and I'm going to pass in the file name that the user entered. And then we're going to have to check and see if this file opened correctly. With C++, there is no interpreter, so there is no virtual machine that is going to intercept or throw any errors for us. We have to do it all ourselves. So we'll write if statements and throw errors based on the checks that we make. So if the file's corrupt, there's a bad bit that is going to be set, and we can check that with bad. So if file.bad, we can throw an exception here. So in C++, you can throw whatever you want. For this, I'm just going to throw an integer. Let's just say we throw a 0. Then down here in my catch block, because 0 is an integer, I can catch it. And I'll just call it X. And you can do whatever you want inside this catch block. If you wanted all of your exceptions to be integers, you could write a switch statement in here based on X, and then have a case for 0, a case for 1, and so on. And you could handle your exceptions that way. But for now, we'll just write a message here and say file was found corrupt. Okay, another thing that could go wrong is the file does not exist, or they typed in the wrong name. So we can say if file dot is open. Well, if it is open, that's a good thing. But if it did not open, we'll just flip that logic there and we will throw an error. So we could throw something else. We could throw a string. We could throw an object. And we're going to choose to throw an object here. And I'll just call it missing file exception. Now, I don't have a missing file exception, but I can write one. And then we'll create a catch block for that exception. So up here, C++ has an exception interface that we can use. I'll write pound include exception. And then we can derive our exceptions from that class. So I can create a class called missing file exception. I'll go ahead and make this public. And to derive this from exception, we'll need to use that inheritance public exception. And the exception class has one method. It's called what. And so we can override that method. It returns a constant char pointer. And like I said, the method is called what. And before we write the body, we're going to make this function constant. And we're going to put no exception, or no except. And why do we do that? And that is just to override the function that is in the exception class. And if you want to go look at that, you can middle click on it. And you'll see it right here. We have a virtual constant char pointer, a function called what, and then it is a constant function with these two macros. And if you backtrack these macros, you'll find that it is just the word no except. So we can drop that in there, no except, and this function is overloaded, or overridden, I should say. Now, inside here, we need to return a constant char pointer, which is just a C string. So we can return file not found. And at the end here, before I put my semicolon, I'm going to create a global variable, and I'll just call it missing file exception. And this is just a global object that I can throw anywhere in my program. So we're going to throw that here. And now to catch this, we need a catch block. So I'm going to catch. With inheritance, I can catch any exception, or I can catch specific exceptions. I'm just going to catch them all. So we'll use lowercase exception x. And I'm going to make this a pointer so I can use polymorphism with my what function. Now, if I'm catching an exception pointer, I cannot throw an exception. I need to throw the address. So we'll make that little change right there. And inside here, we'll just see out x what. All right, let's try this out. I don't have any files in this program, so regardless of whatever file I try to open, it should throw this exception. So if I just type something in, it says file not found. And so our exception class is working just fine, and our try catch block is also working just fine. And if we had a corrupt file, we could test that out, and we should be able to get that message there. And if you had other errors that might come up, you can catch anything with a set of ellipses. And the ellipses don't give you a handle. You have no X here, but you can write, something to indicate that an exception has occurred that you had not accounted for. So, unknown exception. And this will always be your last catch block. It's kind of a catch an error if none of these others do catch anything. If you want to see this in action, just take away the ampersand up here and run the program. And because we're throwing the wrong thing, it's going to trigger that last catch block unknown exception. And that's how you handle exceptions in C++.